Welcome to the River Street Podcast. Your host, as always, Preston Olson. How's everybody doing tonight? How's everybody feeling? Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate everybody who's subscribed to the channel, who follows me on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. Link up. I'm more than happy to interview anybody. I'll have good questions for you. It doesn't matter to me. You know, there's been so much talk, I feel like, about James Comey that you almost get sick of hearing it. It's one of those things where you just hear about something or a situation so much and you're just fed up with it. You're just, literally like, what are we talking about here? I don't really have much of a James Comey rant or a spiel or anything like that, but I will say he opened up a huge can of worms during his testimony in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. He couldn't answer a majority of questions from senators due to the public open setting. That alone was just outlandish. A lot of hype in the commercials that unfortunately I've seen because I don't have Netflix. I missed that wave. I think we went into that on a earlier podcast. Again, we're on podcast number 20, folks. Thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate it. But yeah, I missed that Netflix wave. I really did. I've talked to people about it. You know, the cool thing about Netflix is that you don't see those commercials. But at the same time, I mean, the TV with your DVR, if you have that, works great. The DVR works really well. I really like the DVR, to be honest with you. Now, I just don't understand how what it all boils down to me is just, he answered tough questions with quirky responses at best. It was 3 hours and I watched it all, the build up for nothing, the 11-month investigation that has costed more than it's produced for immigration, tax reform, along with state border taxes and many other important national issues that we're missing out on. And I don't know if this, is for justice as much as it is for political satire and a deflector off many of the important issues that we really need to address, like the ones I listed to you. The only people under investigation by the FBI are a few select members of President Trump's administration. Jeff Sessions' testimony today should finish that up unless the media wants to make a spectacle of it. That should be taken care of because to me, he's as clean as a whistle. And, it has been confirmed now President Trump was never under investigation by the FBI. Also, that the 6'8" James Comey stated he was scared to be alone in a room with President Trump. That's really interesting to me. 6'8" tall guy. I'm 6'1". So if you're 6'8", and I've been around people that are 6'8" and some people that were taller. And I'll tell you, that doesn't bother me, but you do recognize the difference in size. But I mean, that's not what he's saying here. He's saying that he was actually scared. So maybe it felt like it put him in a bad position, and that's his right to feel that way. So, to his credit and in his defense, I mean, that's his right to feel that way. Now, what I really want to talk about is, after he said he didn't want to be alone in a room with Trump without anybody else there, the thing was, and I think maybe that's an FBI thing, which is, to me makes sense. But Comey stated that he talked to him on the phone after that particular, very specific incident, and that's what really blows my mind. Because then he goes on to say that James, he has real high praise for Robert Mueller or Mueller, however you say it, the now independent investigator of the case of Russian interference into the DNC emails and the DNC primary election, um, because there's still no evidence pertinent to Russia collusion with Trump's administration, besides what you've seen with Michael Flynn, and that was on Michael Flynn's behalf solely, and no one else related to that incident has been charged, or has a criminal or civil lawsuit against them. But now we're getting off that topic, and what I really want to talk about is that Puerto Rico voters have just voted for statehood just a few days ago, and the U.S. Congress must approve it. The Department of Justice, I assume, would endorse the decision, but they have not yet. But Puerto Rico becoming a state, how do you feel about it? Comment, subscribe, but I'll tell you how I feel about it. I feel like it's a good thing. The tourism aspect and the people wanting to be a state, and recognizing that statehood is a beautiful thing, that it's just a true testament to how great this country is. And mind you that if they do become a state, that would happen under the Trump administration. But the U.S. Congress, first and foremost, has to approve that decision. And it is a lengthy process. We won't get into it tonight, but it's a lengthy process that they have to go through to become a state. It's not just a overnight thing. So stay tuned. Definitely, that was one of the better stories I read earlier yesterday. Now, what I will say is that the Cavaliers lost to the supervillain Golden State Warriors. So we just got to take a second, let that sink in. It's a reality. I was rooting for Cleveland, but in the last podcast, I said that if Golden State won the first game in Cleveland, that they would finish it out. I thought they'd finish it out the next game in Cleveland, but to LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and other team members, they allowed themselves to stay in the series and not get eliminated. So that was really nice to see LeBron win a game, not get swept. I think that was important to show that, yes, the Golden State Warriors are a great team. They're not a dynasty. They're far away from that. Remember all the heat in the media about the Patriots dynasty and them being a dynasty, and that, it got blown out of proportion. And this is going to be the most similar media spectacle to that since the Patriots winning their third Super Bowl. And, remember, Tom Brady is the Joe Montana of, the millennials. That's your Joe Montana. And, I'll say that LeBron James, I grew up more with LeBron James than I did with Jordan. So, to me, LeBron James is that Michael Jordan type of player, and I think that's why we get so caught up in comparing players and even comparing players in different sports. And they did it, remember when LeBron James said he would play football when the NBA was locked out, and the media ate it up, and, even football players were commenting on it. I remember Jimmy Graham, when he was in Seattle, said that, he could do it if he played like tight end, not wide receiver. That way he could, block and also come off the block and go and catch instead of lining up as a receiver. The defense always knows what you're going to run a route because of who you are, and you're 6'8", and as physical as LeBron James is, he could play football. But the point is, the time that took from the actual other sports that were going on, because now think about it. The NBA finals are done. Okay. Football's been over with, right? Now, there's nothing going on until August. when you're going to finally start seeing, all right, some preseason games. And that's a while for baseball. And then you got racing that comes on, but it's twice a week. If they're running the trucks or they're just running the cars. So it's just one of those things. It's like really baseball's the main sport. It's on Monday through Sunday. Baseball. There's always a baseball game on from now until the end of July and August. And, that's a long time for there just to be one sport. And baseball starts early. Spring training starts early. The football mini camps start already for teams, but the actual training camps, we're still away from that. So it's right now to me the most important thing is baseball. That's the biggest sport to cover. Hockey's done because to me there's four major sports, and then you could fill in the spots however you want after that. But there's four major sports before anything else: NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB. Those four in that order. And I think that that's like the most watched, the most reviewed, the most rated, the most talked about. So I think that, and it gets rated really high. That those are the four biggest sports because that's what you see the most on ESPN, on Fox Sports when they're talking about certain sports. That's what you see. NASCAR gets the race hub, and that's short-lived. UFC gets their show, and that's short-lived, and those are good shows. So I mean, to me, it's like I after those four, probably say UFC or NASCAR. I would say maybe NASCAR would be there. Then mixed martial arts and boxing, and X Games. All the X Games would be after that because that's probably your next biggest, highlight after there's nothing major going on. But everybody's preferences are different, but the way sports are covered, there's four major sports that are really major. The other sports are big. It's not that they're small or little league. No, they're huge, but they're not the NBA, the NFL, the advertising, the marketing, everything that goes into it. It's not that. Racing's going to be there. It's coming up. You know what day it is. It's like football season. You know when racing's coming up if you're a racing fan. You know when the races are. It's just something you know. You like when your favorite team is playing. You know when your team plays. I know when the White Sox play. I know when, I know what they do. I watch the games. If I can't watch the game, I listen to it on the radio, and I just follow along. But to me, it's one of those things where it's like we get so caught up in this talk of, the Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors that no one puts any shine on baseball because we're so caught up in the NBA, we're so caught up in the NFL that baseball's right there, and it's looking at us. And now hockey's done, football's done, basketball's done. Football's getting going, but unless you're watching the NFL network, you're not really getting it except for the talk shows. So it's just one of those things that I picked up on. I'm sure many other people have picked up on it, but we really do drag these conversations out and just kind of wear the conversation out really with Golden State and Cleveland. And Golden State, to me, everybody gets so caught up. Oh, they're going to be right back there. No, they're not going to be just right back there. We'll see what happens. There's other good teams. Teams are going to reload. Teams are conceding. See, we get so caught up. The media gets turned into this conspiracy theory, and then they hate people when they have conspiracy theories. But if you watch them, you see it play out, and they go conspiracy mode. And it's like, whoa, what do you mean their teams are conceding and they're not, ready to challenge the Golden State Warriors or challenge the Cleveland Cavaliers? That's preposterous. That doesn't make any sense. They're professionals. That's their job. It's not rigged. There's no way it's rigged. I can't see you rigging that type of sporting event. It's too long. Um, it's a lot of times it's when younger guys come in, they don't come in as actors. They're not professionals yet. They're really good college players that are now going to adjust to a different game on the professional level. So where everybody's basically as fast as you, but who's stronger? Who what I mean? What team can have certain elements that other teams can't match because it is a scoring league. So, when you have a team like the Golden State Warriors that came out and shot amazingly from 3-point land, it was just one of those games where it's like, well, even if the Cavaliers work the paint, right? If the Cavaliers go to the fundamentals, Golden State hits all these threes and they play their game, it's over. And I seen that this year. I didn't see it the first time they met, but with Durant, it's a totally new beast. And it is. And I have no problem with Kevin Durant being on the Golden State Warriors. Did he take the easy way out? Absolutely he did. That's his choice. That's his right to play for what team he wants to play for if that team will have him there. And it's suitable for both parties. With Kevin Durant, he fits exactly into the scheme, and the matchups favor Golden State against any team in the league. So I can see why people think, oh, well, they're going to go right back there. They're going to run through the Western Conference. No, if they were in the Eastern Conference and LeBron James was in the Western Conference, the Eastern Conference, yes, I could see the Golden State Warriors running through that. But not in the Western Conference. It's a lot tougher. It's a totally different beast. And the Spurs with Greg Popovich, who doesn't get enough credit, as soon as they lose and they're not in the playoffs, we discredit him. And the media discredits him until next year, sometime in the middle of the year, when that's all they talk about again. And it's because he's a proven winner. And Steve Kerr is a great head coach. I hope he does it for many more years. And I think, the biggest thing to me is that he's a leader, and you see it on the court. Mike Brown is the untalked about story in this Cleveland Cavaliers Golden State game. Mike Brown is the untalked about story because he was LeBron James' coach at one time. And everybody's missing that. The assistant coach of the Golden State Warriors was LeBron James' coach in Cleveland, of all places, before. Now, if you didn't know that, we might have to check your basketball card. But, we'll let it go this time. But I'm telling you, he was a factor in the decisions being made. And I just want to make sure that, me and everybody else that listens appreciates that fact. That Mike Brown worked with LeBron James, that he was on the inside with LeBron James, seeing how he played, how he reacts, certain elements of his game, and Mike Brown seeing how he was when he was comfortable and how he was when he was not comfortable, how to make him uncomfortable on the court with certain defensive sets, and filling up the passing lanes. Golden State, besides the San Antonio Spurs, is the best team at stopping the ball from going through the passing lanes in the NBA overall, Eastern and Western Conference. About to back one up real quick. But yeah, we really do. We really get caught up in all of this. I call it like propaganda for the most part. It really is about how teams are going to concede and there's concessions being made because teams can't match up, it just makes you wonder, like, what are we really talking about here? Baseball right now, with what the Yankees have going on and them showing up with a legit core to their team, is a big deal. Aaron Judge, the next Mike Trout type player, is making waves. The type of waves that Kyle Schwarber made when he stepped up from the minors to the Cubs. And I just really think you're seeing a better game in baseball now. I'm even seeing the White Sox, uh, and I love my White Sox. I'll, openly tell you that. I love everything about the White Sox. The history, as much as their competitive nature, the great players that have been in that ball club and always represent that ball club. And like you see a guy like Chris Sale, he's not on the White Sox. You don't hear him ripping the White Sox. No, it's all water under the bridge. It's all professional with them. They're one of the most professional organizations in the MLB, and I think some of that sternness turns some players off from going there, which is okay because you know what type of mentality guys are going to be coming in with. And of course, they want to win, and their goal is to win, but it's deeper than that. It's deeper than just winning. It's preparation, it's a belief that you can do it, and taking action on that belief, but having extreme preparation to go along with it. And the White Sox are not scared to shake the organization up like they did this year with Rick Renteria. And I think he's done a fine job. And when I go online and I actually I'll go ahead and we'll pull up the White Sox actually. We'll pull up the White Sox. And we'll see exactly what the numbers are looking like as far as how they're doing this year. So they're in 5th place in the AL Central. So obviously not a good standing in their conference. They won today 6-1 against Baltimore. And they're 28-35. They did good today. Pitching was spot on. Derek Holland, starting pitcher for the Sox. So Southsiders get a big win today. They need that. 28-35. So you gotta figure in they're over 60 games for the season. So we still have a ways to go. But here's the beautiful thing. The White Sox can go above 500 in the AL Central. I smell wild card. Early in the year, I was thinking full out playoffs. I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to the Chicago White Sox. I don't care what anybody says. Let the haters hate. Because I'm going to preach. And I'm telling you, the Chicago White Sox can get into the playoffs this year. They can do it. When their offense gets going, they do it against good teams. They don't do it against scrubs. Like they're not the team that just loses to pitchers that are 3rd string starting pitchers, 4th string starting pitchers. No, they're beating teams that their pitchers are some of the best in the entire MLB. And I'll even take it a step further. Some of the offenses that are rated as high as they are. Right now, best turnaround story is probably the Toronto Blue Jays starting to play like they're having fun. I think they're the best turnaround story this year, but like the Chicago White Sox have an amazing opportunity here with a young team, right? A young team, some veterans sprinkled in the mix. I mean, this is a formula for a playoff team. And, do I expect them to go far in the playoffs? No, not so much. I expect them to get there. I expect them to show up and represent, but I don't think necessarily it's to the detail of them being some as great as the Cubs were last year on some spectacular run. And the Cubs also have proven themselves over and over again that they're a good team the last 3 years. So, yeah, the Cubs are a good team that have proven themselves, and they're struggling right now as well as the White Sox. But today was a great day for White Sox and White Sox fans. Matt Davidson, he's a great hitter. He hit his first career grand slam today. That's good. Derek Hollern, he scattered 8 hits over 6 innings, and the Chicago White Sox beat the Baltimore Orioles 6-1 on Tuesday from the Associated Press. Really good. Let's look at the Cubs real quick and just see where they're at. Do a compare and contrast here. Can't forget about this. Got to take this hit here. All right, here we go. Second in the NL Central, but they're a 500 team. That's a 500 ball club right there. So they're right in the middle. They're right down the middle. I mean, just looking at this here, what'd they do? Happ hits a grand slam today as the Cubs rout the Mets. The Mets are a pretty good team. Wow, 29-34. And they're second in the NL East. So you can have a losing record and be second in your division. So I mean, that's just. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest with you. It sounds like a bad thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just means there's great competition in that entire conference. The Cubs did most of their work in the in the second inning, and they had 7 runs in the second. So early on, I think the Cubs are one of those teams that they have this formula that they work. Joe Maddon, he works his formula so well that they. And I noticed this last year, and I'm starting to see it again when I look at the Cubs stats and how they played in each inning. I think that if they jump out on you early, and they do that where they get like 5 runs within the first 3 innings, or they get 6 or 7, sometimes more, that it's over. Because ninth inning comes around, and finally the Mets get something going. They get 2 runs, but at that point, you're done because the Cubs already have scored. Let's say they scored 5 or 7, and then your back's still on the wall, and you have 3 runs. So, that's just they're one of those teams that if they get up early, they can basically just have their way and end the game. So that's a true testament to the Cubs right there. Always good to watch the Cubs. Even though I'm a White Sox fan, you got to appreciate good baseball. And that's what I'm all about. Just, enjoying the game, loving the game. Now, the junk file this week, folks, we're coming to a close here. The junk file this week is actually something that I think really belongs there. It truly does. In the junk file this week, lighters that don't have the name BIC on them. BIC. Lighters without that Bic tag on there, without that sticker that says Bic, are no good, and they must go in the junk file. Cheapo lighters, because I will not put Zippos in the junk file, obviously. I don't even consider a Zippo so much a lighter because of the name Zippo and because of what it does and how it is, how it's shaped and everything. It's not a traditional lighter. So cheapo lighters, imitation Bic lighters. Junk file that. Let's make some room in the cabinet. All right, and let's junk file that. Now, the hidden gem of the week is something really cool, and you can do it even on the worst browser, which is Internet Explorer, the absolute worst browser. It's definitely the slowest. But I'll tell you, Adobe Connect. Adobe Connect. It is basically where you can have like a room set up like a training room, a meeting, a group session where you're relaying information or talking, and it's adobeconnect.com. Go check it out. That is the hidden gem of the week. Remember, the hidden gem isn't always something that's old. It's not an old gem. It's a hidden gem. So it's a hidden gem that doesn't get talked about, that you may not have heard, which I know a lot of you haven't heard of it. So Adobe Connect is this week's hidden gem. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining me on the River Street Podcast. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. And remember, a podcast is not like a radio show. It's not like a radio show. A podcast is someone getting on, talking, doing their best to keep it entertaining, and just being natural. So I'm looking forward to interviewing people down the road here. And also, my book is going to be published over this summer. If not, it'll go into the fall, which is fine because things in the mail, how I send everything, can take a while. So by the time I get a lot of the paperwork and the copyright back and everything like that, and the cover art, and the publisher getting it into the Barnes and Noble, then we'll see it at that point. But right now, it's just a lot of hard work going into it, which it is a lot of hard work. Especially if you want it to be a success and you want it to do very well. So be on the lookout for that. And last but not least, check out the links on the page. I want everybody to have a great night. It's going to be hot if you live in Illinois the next few days. So stay cool, keep a lot of water in your system. Be safe, everybody. I will see you again this week, and we'll have a lot more to talk about. Have a good night.